Inverses with other variables. Find the inverse. If f of x is 9x cubed minus 4, then what is the inverse of f of x? Step 1, switch from function notation to y equals. Step 2, switch the x and the y. Step 3, solve for y. And so we have y is equal to cube root of x plus 4 over 3. Now let's switch back to function notation. F inverse of x. Find the inverse of f of x. Step 1, switch to y equals. Step 2, switch the x and the y. Now solve for y. Y is equal to 3 over x plus 2. Now let's switch it back to function notation. Find the inverse. Step 1, switch to y equals. Step 2, switch the x and the y. Now solve for y. Now switch back to function notation. Taylor is saving money for a new bike. She started out with $35 and saves $5 a week. This function will take the number of the week and give the amount of money she has saved since week 1. What would be the inverse function that would take the amount of money she has saved and give the week number? So a of x is the amount of money she has after each week. You plug in the week number and you get the money. So a of x is 5x plus 35. What would the inverse function be? That would take the money, you plug in the amount of money she's saved up, and it would give you how many weeks she's saved. These two functions are inverses of each other. So let's find the inverse. Step 1, set as y equals. Step 2, switch the x and the y. Step 3, solve for x. Now let's switch it back to function notation. So our equation takes the height and gives out the area. Now, if I'm given the area, I need an equation that'll tell you what the height was. Our area formula, A of h is 7h over 2. Now, if I give you the area, what is the height? So we need to find the inverse. Step 1, switch to y equals. Step 2, switch the variables. So the area of the triangle as function of h is 7h over 2. You plug in the height and it gives you the area. Now let's find the inverse. Step 1, write as y equals. Step 2, switch your variables. Step 3, solve for y. Next, let's change it back to function notation. The inverse of h is 2h over 7. Okay, now we have the formula for a trapezoid. Write an equation that represents the inverse function, which takes the trapezoid's area and returns as the output the length of the other base. Step 1, put it into y equals form. Step 2, switch your x and your y. Next, solve for x. Now divide by 8. Y is equal to 2x minus 11 over 8. Change that to function notation. 2x minus 11 over 8. So what does a function and its inverse look like? If we were to take the function and pencil in above the function and fold our function along the line y equals x. If we were to fold the function along that line y equals x and then scratch the function right above our penciled line, the pencil would appear on the other side. A function and its inverse are two functions reflected across the line y equals x. We see that the input of the function is the same as the output. So if the function takes 8 and sends it to -3, the inverse takes -3 and sends it back to 8. F of f inverse at 0. If I take 0 and plug it into the inverse, I get 9. Then I take 9 and it sends me back to 0. F inverse of 1. F inverse of 1 is equal to 5. So f of 5 is 1. The function at the inverse at 1. F inverse of 1 is 5. Plug 5 into the function and you get back to 1. Find the inverse of the function. Step 1, write in y equals notation. Now solve for y. So simplify your fractions. Switch the variables.
Next step, solve for y. I'm going to multiply everything by 3. So I multiply everything on both sides by 3, and now I reduce and bring everything down. Okay, finish up solving for y. Last step, divide by 2. Y is equal to 3x plus 50 divided by 2. So the inverse of x is 3x plus 50 divided by 2. The function below allows you to convert Celsius to Fahrenheit. Use this function to convert 35 degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit. So all we do for this one is we plug 35 in for C. Now simplify. And last step is add. So 35 degrees Celsius is 95 degrees Fahrenheit.